Hello everyone, I am Shellie Geigle with JS Hobbies and Crafts, and welcome to my craft room. And I have another mini album tutorial for you. And a beginner, you can make this. Even the seasoned crafters might find this fun to make as well. So let's move on to the album overview of what we will be making today. Album overview. So this is an 8.5 by 7 album, and the spine is almost 4 inches wide. And this is with the Stamperia New England paper packs. And we have some Prima flowers in 49th and Market. And some lace. So it is quite big. Okay, first page. What we have here is a fold out, and we have a small little pocket for some picture mats. And before we go any further, after doing the picture mats that you see in this overview, I still had some leftover tags I could have used. I have this little over half a sheet here. I had this full sheet left, and also this really nice sheet, which is good for picture mats or folders. So that is what was left over after creating everything that you see. So if you want more, you can either buy another paper pack or alter in some solid colored cardstock. So this flips out, and this is a beginner's album. There is no die cutting. It's all paper punching with the trim punches, and a lot of easy creations, designs in here. And don't let the cover fool you or what you see. If you are a beginner, you can make this. Okay, another little pocket off to the side. And we have a larger pocket back here for larger picture mats. Okay, over here, this just folds up, and you can do some journaling or leave it alone, or small picture here if you'd like, picture here if you'd like. And this folds down, and this is a free floating picture mat, meaning you can put several in here. It is magnetic to keep it in. Down here is a pocket, and I have a little tag in there. Okay, this page, so this flips up, and there's a nice place here to put a photograph. Down here, you can slide some picture mats back behind the bird cage, or just a regular picture, whatever you would like. And then this actually folds out, so there's a place right here to put a photograph. You can put one here if you wanted to. And this opens up, and there is a pocket over here. Put picture mat. And here is a belly band, and you can slide picture mats and your pictures back behind. In there. Over here is just a side pocket. Get those back in. Okay. Here we have a fold out and a nice place to put a photograph. Over here is a little side pocket, and there are 4 little discs, and these are for the picture wheel page, so I'm just going to stick these right here for now. There's a pocket here, put some photos in there, and then there's a large pocket back here for larger photographs. Okay, so the picture wheel. I'll grab these. Down here is a little pull tab. You can actually rotate this around. This one is designed for 4 different pictures. Now, if you have small pictures, you can use this as a template. You put your photograph on there and trim around. And placement of these are pretty simple. You would start right here and glue it back behind where you can see through. Then you would turn it. You would place another one, glue it down, you turn it, so forth for the other ones. So that's how that works, and that's kind of neat because it's something different. and this is a pocket as well. You can, if you have grandchildren, children, or just want some favorite little photos going around there, it's just something different to do. So I'll put these back in the little pocket over there. Okay, here we have a little front pocket. You can slide a tag or a little photograph picture mat in there. And here we have a large, generous pocket back here for the larger picture mats. Over here is a fold out, but it's also a side pocket, and you can put larger photos in there as well. Slide in and out. This folds out, and we have a lot more storage for our picture mats in here, and larger ones. Okay, over here we just have like a bird cage, and I just stuck these back behind, but you can plant a nice size photograph here. You can also just put your photographs right on some little picture mats and just slide them right on back in there. Also, we have a side pocket, and it will hold a large photo. And I put a flat back pearl so that it's easy to maneuver in and out. Over here, this is magnetic, and this flops up, and then we have like a side waterfall here, and you just plant your photos. Real simple. Place a nice size photo there. Here, what we have is just a pocket page. This is a little pocket. You can slide a little tag or a small photo back there. Large pocket back here for storing the larger picture mats in there. And over here is a half page that I decided to work into this, and this can hold a good size photo back in here, some picture mats. This is just a page. We plant a photo, and here this is a double fold out. Here you can slide a photograph back behind there, and this flops open. And this back page is just for planting your photos, easy placement. Here, 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 here. So that is what we will be making today. Let's move on to our materials list. Okay, we're at the materials list. The main ingredients is the Stamperia New England paper pack. Now there is only 10 double-sided sheets per pack, so we are going to need 2 of them to complete this project. If you are prone to making errors, you might want to pick up a 3rd pack, or you can alternate in some solid colored cardstock. So for this, it is just a lovely, beautiful paper collection, just like the lilac flowers. It's just gorgeous. You're going to need 2 pieces of medium weight 12 by 12 chipboard, and we will cut these down to size. You're going to need Tyvek, and all Tyvek is mostly you'll find them in envelopes. One large Tyvek will last you several albums. All we're going to need is 2 strips off this. I am using white 8.5 by 11 cardstock. You can use 65 pound or 110 pound. I'm using the Coordinations 110 pound white cardstock. Mostly in this tutorial I am going to be using the EK Tool punches, and I'm using a variety so that I can get a variety of different looks on each page. What I'm going to be using is a variety, like I said. This one's embroidery. This one is dotted scallop. This one's so lovely. Diamond flowers. Now there are some 1/4 inch, and I am going to be using this one on the edge of our main pages. This is open scallop. Another 1/4 inch is scalloped scallop. And then I'm using a 1/2 inch punch, and this one is called polka dots. And I've got abstract flower, and that's a 1/2 inch. So I've got 2 1/2 inches and 2 1/4 inches there. Another thing that I'm going to be using that's helpful is a 1 1/2 inch round EK Tools punch. Flowers. I am not die cutting flowers on this album. I've decided to go with the 49th and Market, and these are the Garden Seed Bluebell, and they are very pretty and they match the collection very well. Also the Prima flowers, and these are Fleur de Prima. Let me give you the item number. I think they're also called French Riviera, possibly. They're just in a different package. Item number 586232, and they're kind of the white roses and flowers in there. You get several. Tim Holtz, these white bouquet. Now this is something I am going to be using. I've already gotten into mine. There's so many, but I want to show you what I'm going to be doing to add some extra color. I've got Color Box Sky Blue, and I just dabbed some on. I hope you can see that, of the sky blue, to give a little more color, and those look really good. I also am using the Memento Paris Dusk to give the flowers a little color, and in this paper collection these colors look good, so you can either go heavy or dark with the coloring, and it's not a whole lot of fussing around. Let me show you really quick. And if you don't have a pair of these are on wire snips and you're looking to get one, these are very sharp and they work really good. So with this, it's really a no hassle. I've daubed some on, and all I'm going to do is just go like this. Now for a light dusting, that flower is done, as you can see. For extra leaves, I'm actually using a leaf punch. This one's by Tim Holtz, but any leaf punch will work, and they're very simple, and I'm going to show you how I get that color. So I just punch, and I'm using Memento Olive Grove, and this one is Color Box Turtle. I usually use 2 colors. And all you have to do, and it's not a real big fuss to get these, is go around the edges with your dark, the Mementos Olive Grove, and sometimes I just blot a little in the inside there. Then I go back with a different color green, a lighter green. This one's Turtle, and I just kind of blot in there some color, and you can get your leaves. So those are what I'm using for extra leaves. I'm going to be using 2 different butterflies. These are both by Petaloo. One is the blue ones, and one is the cream colored ones. I am using my own brand, the Designs by Shellie DBS, and these are the wood bird cages, and this is the DBSE-050. And you get 3 per package. I'm also using this 2-pack of their pearl and bling. They're pretty heavy duty, nice quality, and they look like this on the back. Very nice. And I'll be needing 1 for the front closure, so you'll have an extra one for another album. Oh, really quick, if you have some dried baby's breath, now this is just an option. Sometimes adding dried baby's breath tucked underneath flowers and stuff really help. I think I'm going to incorporate some of these in my flowers inside and outside the album. I am doing something special inside this album that I've never done before in other albums. And you will need brads. So if you don't have any brads, the Tim Holtz long fasteners brads are a good choice. You get a lot in the package. They're very inexpensive, and you get 3 colors. You get the nickel, the copper looking, and the gold. Flatback pearls. I will be using some flatback pearls. If all you have is 1 20-pack, that will do, but I will be using a couple varieties, I think. So whatever you have on hand, you know. Stickles, my best friend. Okay, so I've got a variety of stickles here, and pick and choose your weapon, but I will be using a little of all of these. This one is the crystal. This one is the mercury glass. This one is ice, what does that say? Ice blue. And the bottles are kind of deceiving because you're not going to get something exactly like that once you spread it out. If you go thick, you will, but you see that? And then once you spread it out, it isn't so potent. It looks really good for what we're doing. And then this one, waterfall. You'll want 1 10-pack of heavy-duty craft magnets, and I like the ones I sell. They are 3/8 inch with 1/16 inch approximately thickness on a roll. I use this in a lot of my projects, and you'll want the single row. Okay, so for lace, we got some new lace in, and I have just been itching to use it. I'll tell you, it's really pretty. This is the 2 3/4 inch medallion, and I'm gonna use, I got about a 1 yard cut here. Okay, I also have the 1 inch stretch galloon, and it does stretch, so I'll probably use this one or that one, probably this one for my side closure, but I've got a 1 yard cut of this, and I'll use this in my album too. This is some really nice stuff. This is the 1/1/8 inch stretch galloon, and I've got a 1 yard cut of this. I had some of the flapper style lace left over from my lilac flowers, so I have just a little bit less than a yard. It's very pretty. And we've got a bunch more different styles, but I wanted to try this out. I think this is really pretty. This is the 1 3/4 inch, and we call it the Dangle Trellis Rayon Venice, and the item number is TL27. And that's a 1 yard cut. I think that's it. Now, you don't have to use all the lace that I just showed you. Pick and choose. If you have some in your own stash, grab a bunch out. Adhesives. You'll want a couple rolls of your 1/4 inch score tape. And also, I am using for glue purposes Art Glitter Dries Clear Adhesive Glue. There's no glitter in it. That's just the brand name. This is perfect for metal, for your paper, for plastics, resins. It does everything. Just about, anyway. And if you are getting a bottle of this, be sure to get the metal tip so that you save on how much glue is dispensed from here, because you don't need a whole lot. Another thing that I like to use for quick tacking is my hot glue gun. I'm working with a low temp so that I don't hurt myself or blister my skin. And I use this for quick tacking of tabs and my flowers. Okay, last item on my list is the Dritz Extra Large Hook and Eyes. And this actually comes with 3 sets in here. You only need 1. It's for our side closure, so you'll have 2 pairs left for your next project. And this is the nickel plated. Equipment, things that you're going to want, of course, are your scissors, a pencil with eraser, a ruler. If you're using those Tim Holtz bouquet flowers, some little wire snips. Definitely need your scoring board, and this is the EK Tools 12 inch by 12 inch, and it gives you the 8ths as well for scoring. And then, of course, a paper cutter. And that's all I can think of. Let's go ahead and start building our album. I have both my 12 by 12 pieces of chipboard, and the first cut I'm going to do on each of these is I'm going to measure over 8.5 inches and cut on each. So this is what you're going to have left over, is these 2 side pieces. You can put these away for another project. We won't be using those in this. Now, I'm turning mine like this. On each one, we are going to measure over 7 inches and cut. So what you should have here is a front and back cover. We are going to be looking at them like this because our album's going to be more of a landscape style. So we should be 7 inches by 8.5 inches. Front cover, back cover. Let's set these off to the side. This is what we want. One of these you can set off for another project. What we're going to do on this is measure over 3 7/8 inch and cut. You can stick this off to the side for another project. We won't need that. Okay, looking at it like this, we're going to measure over and cut it at 7 inches. We won't be needing this. So let's take a look at what we have here. We have a front cover, a back cover, and this is our spine piece. So if we were to butt these all up, they should be even across the top and across the bottom. And on this, I like to wrap my pieces individually. That's just my personal preference. I like the way it looks. So I'm going to give you a couple tips for staying organized throughout this tutorial because it does tend to can get out of control or overwhelming. So on one of these paper packs, we're going to tear off the cover. We want this cover. We will be using some of this, so don't throw this away. We're going to remove each piece, and then what we'll do is we'll just put it in right next to its match in our other pack. And it's easier for me to do this when there's only 10 pages so that I can see what it is I have left while I'm building this, because I do build this as I go, and it just seems easier to merge all these into one pack. So let's do that. And the back piece, you'll also want to keep this back piece because, believe it or not, we do have some things over here that we can use, and we are tight on paper, so conserving and using our paper pad to the best of our ability is what I have in mind for this tutorial. Okay, so that was the first tip. We merged our paper into the one, and we're keeping these. The next tip is throughout this tutorial, every time we cut into our white cardstock and we have a trimming left, we will be putting these into its own little pile, and I call them a reserve pile or a scrap pile. And we'll be making another pile every time we cut into and have leftovers of one of our decorative paper. We'll be placing those leftovers into a second pile, our reserve or our scrap pile. So that is a tip because we do grab from our scrap pile throughout this tutorial. And again, the scrap pile is called a reserve pile. So now we got those tips out of the way, we're going to start wrapping our album. And again, I am going to be wrapping them individually. If you are someone who does not like to wrap yours like that, you're someone that likes to connect yours and then wrap it around, go ahead. If that's the case, you would be leaving a space in between your covers and your spine, that you already know that, and you should be 8.5 inches across this way. So we're going landscape with this. Those of you that would like to wrap it the way I am going to do, cut 3 pieces of cardstock that are 9 inches by 8.5 inches. Okay, we got our 3 sheets here, and we should be looking at them so that they are 9 inches this way, okay, and then we would be 8.5 this way. So let's grab some score tape, and we're going to place a piece of score tape down the sides of 2 of them. Try to get it right there at the edge and straight. Okay, so you can either grab your scoring board or your paper cutter. What we're looking to do is find something with a straight edge. I'm going to release. Make sure your score tape is down really good. If you are a beginner or never worked with score tape before, you're going to want to wash your hands to get all the lotion and oils off your fingertips. It's almost impossible to keep your fingers off the sticky side, and the more we touch it, the less potent. And if you have oils or lotions on your skin and you're touching that, it's not going to hold for you. It's just going to just not be potent enough. Okay, so I'm going to release one side, and I'm going to place this on the edge of my paper cutter because I want to keep it straight. Again, we are 9 inches this way. Okay, here is the second piece I have. Score tape's over here. I'll deal with that in a minute. I am going to place this one up against this to keep it straight, and I'm going to bring it over the top of this one. And that should be a straight fit. I'm going to slide that over, remove the score tape, and we will be cutting this down. It's just easier to connect them all at once. Okay, remember we are 9 inches this way. I'm going to get that straight, get that one straight, and lay it on top of the score tape. So now I've got a nice straight edge there. Alright, and it fits through my paper cutter. I'm just going to slide that all the way back. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to measure over 10.5 inches and cut. This is our first piece. So we have this large piece left, and I'm going to flip mine around so the bigger part is here. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to measure over 10.5 inches and cut. This leftover piece, put it in your reserve pile. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 6 inches by 9 inches. Once you have that piece, this is our spine piece, and we should have about 1 inch on each side, and we want to keep it as straight as possible. And all we're going to do right now is we're just going to fold up against that there, and our sides. And this just helps us when we're wrapping this. And then the bottom. Okay, so set that off to the side. We're going to be doing the same thing with this. Now you're going to want to be 9 inches this way, and we're 10.5 this way. So we should have approximately about 1 inch of white cardstock showing all the way around. We're going to do the same thing we just did with our spine piece. We're going to center this as best we can. If you're a little off, it's okay. So, and then we're just going to start bending in and forming it around. And you're going to repeat doing that for this one as well. So let's do that. Alright, so we have all these to do. We'll start with this one. Let's grab our score tape, and I'm using score tape that I had left over from another project here. So I'll get into my next roll as soon as this is done. So all I'm going to do is wrap score tape, the first thing I'm going to do, around the outside edges of this chipboard like a picture frame. A lot of people just like to run one strip, tear it off, and go around. I just kind of keep it going and overlap. So in case you're asking, well, I can't get it around the corners. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put one right down the middle. We're going to want another one over off to the side and on over here. And we're going to lay 3 pieces here. And this will help keep down our paper and to avoid any bubbling of it. Now, one thing about score tape too is that you want to make sure it's good and down. So using your scoring tool, your bone folder, you can press it down using that. Okay, so I'm going to remove the score tape and I am going to place it on the inside of this using those where we pulled up the edges as my guide, because you can see where the corner is here. And this is where the craft knife comes in handy to lift up the backing off that score tape. Okay, got the backing off, and I'm going to place this. And if I'm a little off, then that's okay. I'll just refold myself on the edges. Okay, so I got that down. Here is another tip for you. We're using white cardstock, so you'll want to keep your area clean, your hands clean, because I'll tell you, you start using glues and stuff like that, smudges get on this paper. Another tip, once you put down your score tape, if you have a scratched piece of cardstock, and I'm going to grab this, always lay it down over your paper that you're doing and then use your tool. It will help eliminate any streaks on your paper, depending on the grade of your paper or what you're working with. But this will help get that score tape down really good. And that's what we want. Okay, so let's see. I got mine pretty much on those where I was supposed to be. Maybe off a little up here. So let's check and make sure that our fold is where it should be. And I think I'm looking good there. Okay, let's place score. We're going to first clip some edges here. But sometimes it's easier to lay our score tape first. With this type of wrapping style, I like to clip first. It's easier because when we end up wrapping, we won't be wrapping the top until we're done assembling the Tyvek and all that. The sides will come in first. So not to get too far ahead, when I clip this at an angle, I'm going to leave enough space at the corner, about 1/8 of an inch, so that I can tuck that in and roll it when we do this. So, and you don't have to measure how far this, just kind of eyeball it, what you need. That is way off, but that's okay. Okay, so that is what we have. Let's get this ready, and then we're going to repeat the same thing for the other ones, and I'll get us started on that. So for this, I am going to actually lay on the chipboard around like a picture frame. Seems to be a little easier that way. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go at an angle here and wrap it around the outside all the way around. And I'll show you what mine looks like in just a moment. Okay, this is what I have so far. Now we just need to do one strip here, 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 and here. Okay, let's jump on to the other pieces. We're going to do exactly the same thing as we did before. We're to take the chipboard, line it around the edges like a picture frame, one next to it on either side, and then we have the middle and then 3 on either. And then we are going to place this down, just like we did before. Now I'm going to remove it and place it. Flip it over and make sure that score tape is down really good. Okay, flip it back. Make sure that you got on your paper where we still have the right creases. If you need to adjust, then adjust it. Let's clip. leaving ourselves about 1/8 of an inch there from the corner. And for now, stick these in our scrap pile. We may need a little piece of scrap, and that would work fine. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing we did before, and I'm going to place my score tape along the edge of the chipboard. Okay, next up, run our score tape around the outside edges and then one in the middle. So what we've got is our front and back covers. They're ready to go, and we'll be doing that together, so don't jump ahead. Here's the spine, and we are going to go around the edges like a picture frame, and then let me show you how we will do this part. Got mine, one down the middle. And since this is going to be the outside, actually we'll be just fine putting one on either side. So let's remove the score tape backing. I've got the backing off, and we're going to do the same thing before. Try to line it up where it's supposed to go, trying to keep it even. If you get it a little off, it's going to be okay, because we're going to wrap these edges and make sure our score tape is down. Okay, flip it over and let's miter those corners. And we'll put these in our scrap pile. Alrighty, so we're going to do the same thing we did before, score tape around the outside. We want to put it on the edge of the chipboard as well, and then one in the middle. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is make sure we have our pieces the correct way. Remember, we are 8.5 inches this way. We are 7 inches this way. These top flaps, we are not going to roll over after we roll these in. Not yet anyway. All right, we're going to start rolling over our flaps here. And it's just on the side ones. Make sure that you are when you're looking at these, 7 inches down this way on all of these, 7 inches. So the first one that I want to do is start right on over here. And because I wrapped mine, I'm just going to slice up that, get that off, and remove some of that. Okay, starting with this one, I'm going to pull back my score tape a bit up there, down here. Okay, so this, just make sure that your sides are bent where they need to be, and we are going to push over. Grab your scratch piece of cardstock that you are using, and I'm just going to push that score tape back so I don't get it hooked on here, and make sure it's down. I'm going to do it over here too. Okay. Move this back a little bit. So it doesn't get caught. Okay, and I'm going to roll that over. Make sure that's smoothed down. I can push that back. And do like this. So I'm going to stop at this point with this because I don't want to roll it over yet. We still have some things to do over here. Again, we are 7 inches down. We're going to do the same thing with the sides. Roll it in. Okay, let's repeat this for this side, this, and this. And again, don't undo the score tape from the top and the bottom yet. This is what yours should look like. It's time to get our tie back. Cut 2 pieces of your tie back that are 1.5 inch wide by 6 7/8 of an inch tall. And then we're going to get our scoreboard out, and we're going to lay this down to where we are 1.5 inches across our board. At 3/4 of an inch, we're going to score. Now, Tyvek likes to wiggle and move, and that's okay if you get your scoring just a little bit off. So at 3/4 of an inch on each one of these. Whoops. See how wiggly it is. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just fold these over. So if you got a little bit off, just match it up. Okay, let's grab our score tape. We're going to place one on the inside over here. I'm treating these as two separate panels. You will have your seam right down the middle, the peak. Just to the right of the peak, we're going to lay a piece of score tape straight down. We're going to lay one off to the right at the edge. And then we're going to come to the left side of the peak and lay a piece of our score tape and to the left-hand edge. We're going to repeat for this one as well. Now, to be on the safe side for me, you will notice you will have a gap between this and this. I'm going to overlap my score tape, and I'm going to run one down the middle. And I'm going to do it for all of these, just to be on the safe side. And once I'm done doing this, I'm going to turn my piece over and double check and trim off any score tape that is peeking over the edge. We don't want that. Okay, it is time to place our pieces. We're going to work with our spine piece. Remember, we are 7 inches this way and we should be 6 7/8, so you have a nice fit. I am going to have to peel this back, and I'm just going to take it off and get that out from under there. Okay, what we want to do is release the backing off the score tape to one side of this tie back. And I usually like to start with the one that's buried underneath. You don't have to. I just find it's easier for me and less crinkles. And then I go for the one on top. I found over time, I used to do it the other way, but this seems to be easiest. Okay, so what we have here is the sticky part, and here's the peak, and I'm going to maneuver this so the peak is now like this. The sticky side is down. All I'm going to do is watch where the top of my black chipboard is up here, and I'm going to place this right on the edge of this spine piece and bring it all the way down. And then I will open it and press. Okay? Do not worry about this showing because we do have flaps to come over in our other piece. It's going to cover everything. Okay, next thing is we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to release one side of the score tape on our other tie back piece. Okay, so now I'm going to press this together. The peak is here. The sticky side is underneath. The peak is facing this way. Again, I'm going to match it up with the top and at the edge of my piece here. Bring it all the way down. And don't worry if you're a little short and you get a little off, okay? It isn't going to make any difference. So I'll just open that up and do like that. Okay, it is time to get one of our side pieces here. Remember, we are 7 inches. I just don't want you to lay your piece the wrong way and mess it up. That's why I'm pretty repetitive here. It's easy to do, to get turned around. So I'm going to release the packing off the other side of the tie back. And I'm also going to take off the backing from the top and the bottom. Just like that. I'm not going to worry about this right here, the flaps. Okay, so this is the part where you're going to really want to pay attention. Is what you're going to do is line these up, butt them up together. Watch to see where the bottom of your chipboard is, and you'll line it up with the bottom of the chipboard over here. There is no spacing in this style of album. You don't need it for what we're doing. So just make sure that you are the same. And once you have them and you push them together, there is absolutely no gap on this. And then press it over. Okay? Now let's release the top and the bottom from the score tape backing. Okay? And now we can fold up and over. Grab our tool and make sure that's down really good. Same here. Make sure you're flush and pinch in your sides if needed, right there on the edges. Okay, it's time to get the other side on. This is a pretty simple way of doing your album. Again, make sure 7 inches. Take that and that off. I'm gonna release the score tape off the Tyvek. I'm gonna bring these together, watching to make sure the black of the chipboard is lining up together. And then I'm going to press over. Now I can release the rest of this. Push in any sides that need to be pushed in, those little areas for the corners. All right, we're free to roll this up and over now. Push in any corners, fold that in, and wrap up. Okay, so it has been 2 weeks since I've been able to get back to filming. A lot of things going on at the hobby store. One of the things is my husband and I, we created this new DBS ruler. And this ruler actually will give me the measurements. It spells it out for me. On one side, it will give me the 1/4 inches, the 1/8, all the way up to 12 inches. Starting point, we have a line here at 0 to show you exactly where the starting point is. On the flip side, we get all the measurements, meaning that we have, if I needed 1/16, it's right here and it says 1/16. Now, one thing about this is it is a clear ruler, so you can see underneath. And since we are working with white cardstock, you will notice that it's kind of harder to see those engraved measurements. So what I am going to do is I have cut a 2-inch wide by 12-inch, and I did overlap here, and I'm going to line this edge up with the 0 because that is a true measurement point. And then all I'm going to do is stick a little tape back behind for this tutorial, and then you can see it a little bit better against the white. Now I think you can see from behind the white cardstock a little bit better, but I'm going to bring this up and you can actually see that the measurements are all there for me, and it's a little bit easier if you're struggling with measurements. Okay, so let's get on to this. We are here, and what we want to do is cut a piece of cardstock that is 6 inches wide by 6 7/8 of an inch tall. Now we're going to do this a little bit different than how we did on my previous tutorial, which was lilac flowers, where we wrapped it like this. And the reason why I do things differently from time to time and change it up is to keep it from getting boring, number one. Number two, to show you have options. Okay, so once you get your piece cut, and we're 6 inches across this way, if you were to place this down, what we're trying to do is cover up at least to the sides of the Tyvek. So, and that would leave us about a 1/16 of an inch spacing from the top of our album and the bottom. And I'm pretty good right here. So I am going to apply my score tape. And it's very important that we cover this with score tape, because when we do end up folding in our sides like this, we don't want anything to bubble up. So I am going to show you in just a moment what mine looks like. So this is what mine looks like. And what I did was I started with going around the outside edge first. Then what I did was I left maybe about 1/8 of an inch spacing in between each one of these. And it fits right on in there. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the score tape. And I'm going to lay this down. Remember, I'm going to have this to where it covers that Tyvek strip. And when I lay it, it's only going to give me about 1/16 of an inch to where I can see the top and the bottom. So I'm going to get started with removing the backing off my score tape. Okay, the backing is off. And I'm going to make sure that my sides are going to cover. And I'm going to clip any score tape that overhangs. And I'm just going to bring this right on down, leaving about 1/16 of an inch. Trying to keep that straight as I can. Now this is the part that is very important. We grab that scratch piece of cardstock, we lay it over, and we make sure that we use our tool to make sure that the score tape is completely down. So once you've done this all over, you're going to come back to where you can see where the split is going to be, your hinge right in here. And you are going to go back over to make sure, because when we pull these up, it's going to want to pucker your paper. So I've used my tool and I've gone over it. So now what I want you to do is place your hand down. You might want to have your tool handy, but you're going to slowly pull up your side, just like that. And you should have a nice crease. If you see, I don't have it happening on mine, but if you see it starts to want to bubble up, that's when you're going to grab your piece and concentrate on that area, rub it down, and pull your side up. So this is a slow bringing in of your sides. So this is what yours should look like. Let's move on to actually cutting our pages that we're going to hinge in here. Okay, cardstock. We're going to create our inner pages, our hinges. So cut 5 pieces of your white cardstock to 6 1/4 inch by 8 7/8 of an inch. I've got all 5 of mine cut. Let's get our scoring board out. Okay, lay your piece out, and we are in landscape view, so we are 8 7/8 across the board here. On each one of these, we are going to score them at 8 1/4. So let's do that with all of these. Once you get all of yours scored, we are going to fold and use our tool to flatten that out on each one of these. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch open scallop. And what I'm going to do is, since our pages are going to be inserted like this, when I punch this, I'm going to punch it so the flap is facing up. And when you maneuver this, you will notice on here the shape of the scallops. When I start this, I am going to make sure that the edge of my page is just to the left there. So I'm going to bring it up and show you. And I think you can see right there, just as it's about ready to meet the one up here. And that way I won't have an open edge on the top. So I am going to start punching this. All the way down. And we're going to do this with each one of our pages. Remember, the flap is facing up when we place it in our thing. And each time you're going to start it at the same point of where you place the edge of your paper. Okay, I've got all mine punched, and the reason why I say to start at the same point is so that you can line up your scallops. Now down here at the bottom, we'll have a little bit of an open one. If you don't like that, you can always use your scissors and trim back that one. And if you do it on one, you'll want to do it on all of them. So for mine, I guess I'll show you, and so I'll have to do it on all. But all I'm going to do is come down towards the edge, clip it carefully over so that I don't break it. So now I have to do the same cut on all of these to keep it consistent. Well, as consistent as I can anyway. So if you would like to do that, let's do it. Otherwise, let's move on to the next part of this. Okay, next part, we are going to need our score tape. So I'm going to flip this over to where the peak is up, and we are going to lay our score tape. You have a peak here just to the right of the peak without getting your tape on that peak. Lay a piece of your score tape, and then you're going to lay another piece right next to it, which should be just about at the edge there. Now once that's on there, you may want to use the back of your tool or whatever, your bone folder, to make sure that score tape is down. And once you do that, we're going to definitely trim off any of that score tape that is peeking over, because that will mess us up. Okay, let's do that with each one. Remember, when placing your score tape, the peak is up. Lay it to the right side of that peak, making sure you're not on it. And then we'll lay another one right next to it, which should come to the edge. And then we trim. So let's go ahead and do that for the rest of our pages on our hinges here. Okay, after you've inspected to make sure that none of your score tape is peeking down over the sides and your score tape is down really good, we're going to start installing these. So I'm going to carefully set my coffee aside here. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is, on this particular one, we're going to have some headroom and some bottom room. So if you have one of these rulers, great. Remember, you're going to start at the 0 point, which will give us a true measurement. And I'm using the 16th side where it shows me. If you're using this ruler, it will help you because it will tell you exactly where we need to be. From the bottom, first of all, find your hinge, where it hinges up, okay? We're going to do just on the inside of that hinge. Down here, place your ruler until you can see 5/16 right at the bottom of your album cover, okay? Your starting point is 0, so just make a line. Just like that. All you need is 1, because that is where we start our first one. And we're going to place it. And when we place this, we're going to make sure that we have this up, this is pushed over, and when we lay it, it will lay right on that line. I hope that makes sense. So let's start. I'm going to remove the score tape. And we don't have to measure for the rest of these because they're all going to fall in line together. That's what's good about this type of hinging system. It does hold, and it also helps guide us with the rest of them when we place it. So I'm going to hold this one up, and I think you can see where my mark is. And I'm going to place it so my hinge hits my paper of this, hits where that crease is. I'm going to pull it down until I'm just on that line so I can't see it anymore, and then I'm going to press, and then I'm going to smooth it down. Now I am going to be placing my scrap cardstock when I'm done placing all these and making sure it's down really good, but let's just get these started. So there's my first one. like so. And red nail polish is bad because I just marked up my white cardstock by rubbing against. I guess I should have gotten the shellac, but I did not. So I've got to be super careful. Otherwise I'm going to have red nail polish streaks all over the place. Okay, so this is real simple now. All I'm going to do is take this and I'm going to line it up with the top and the bottom and butt it up right next to it. Just like that. And I'm going to place it and smooth it. And I'm going to continue on with these. And it will fall right in a line for you. So I've got that, the top and the bottom, and they're up against each other. Press and smooth. Okay, we're going to continue doing that for these last two. So I've got all mine in here. Now is when we go back. We'll put this over the hinge and make sure that our score tape is down really good to our spine piece. And we'll do this for all of our pages here that we've put in, making sure it's down really good. So let's continue on and do that. Now cut a piece of cardstock that is 6 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. We're going to do a little short page insert here in the back of our book. So once you have that cut, we are 5 1/2 across the board at 3/8 score. And we're going to fold and use our tool. And we're going to grab our little scallop and we're going to do the same thing. The hinge is up and we're going to maneuver that like we did before. And we're going to punch along the long side. Okay, flip this over. The peak is up. And let's grab our score tape and we're just going to lay a piece right on there. And if you have any score tape peeking over the edge, you'll definitely clip it. And now we're going to install this one in the very back. And it's the same way. We're going to butt it up against the one next to it, like so, and press. And voila, there we have it. And this is just something different to do for a little short page in between these two. So now we have our book together and we are definitely ready to start decorating the outside. Okay, in our paper pack we will find this sheet. On the back it looks like this, and I try to stay consistent with how I tell you to measure over. So we are going to measure over 8 3/8 inch and cut. So if you are using the DBS ruler to make a mark with your pencil, if you're not real savvy on doing measurements, I'm going to bring this right on up here so you can see. Some people who are used to centimeters that don't know the inch, each one of these, 1, 2, 3, that's an inch mark. So what we're looking at is 8 inches. Here's the 8. And then it's going to show you right here, 8-3/8. That's 3/8. So that is your mark to make a pencil mark and cut. This is what you should have. For now, stick this in your reserve pile. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our paper so we are looking at it like this. We're going to measure over 6 7/8 of an inch and cut. And on our ruler here is 6, and if you notice this last dash here before you hit the 7-inch mark, it will say 6-7/8. That's 7/8. So measuring over 6 7/8, we're going to cut. Stick this in your reserves for now. Let's grab our book. Let's make sure that we're looking at it the correct way. We do have our half page in the back here. How this is going to play out is this is going to be centered, and you will have a white border of your chipboard, your covered chipboard, all the way around. So let's flip this over, and we are going to apply our score tape, and we're going to put it around the outside edge like a picture frame on this side. And if you go over the edge, you will want to clip it. So here's our starting point. Over here, we're going to lay a piece of score tape right next to the other one. We'll do it on the other side. We'll go one down the middle. And we are going to just space this out. We don't want our paper to bubble up. And I am putting 3 rows on either side. Now, one thing you might want to do is in between these, you may want to put a little bit of your glue. But before I add my glue, I'm going to show you how this is going to place. Make sure that score tape is down. Again, here is this. And when I lay this down, I am going to center it so I have a white border all the way around my page. I'm going to remove the backing off my score tape first, and then I will add some glue in between there. And I don't want a lot of glue because we don't want any bubbling up. If you have the tip on this type of glue or your glue, it will help control so you don't put too much glue down, because you really don't need that much. And my glue. Okay. And when I place this, the flower is going to be down here. So I think I'm going to open mine up so I can see what I'm doing just a little bit better here. Making sure that I have a white border, trying to keep straight. As straight as I can anyway. Okay, I am going to use my scratch paper, make sure that that's down really good. So this is what you should have. We're going to work on getting the back piece on before we do the spine. In your paper pack, you will find this sheet. On the back, it is this really pretty blue flowery. We're going to measure over 8 3/8 of an inch and cut. Stick this piece in your reserves for now. Now I'm going to turn my sheet so I'm looking at it like this. I'm going to measure over 6 7/8 inch and cut. The smaller piece goes in our reserves. And we're going to flip this over, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the cover. Score tape around the outside like a picture frame, and we'll lay an extra one on each side, one down the middle, and 3 strips on either side of that. And I'll show you mine. Okay, so what's going to happen here is I'm going to remove my score tape backing in just a moment. But one thing you'll want to do is whenever you're putting on your back piece, you want to make sure that you don't put it on upside down. So I like to look at my front of my album. I know this is correct. And then I just flip it over this way. And how this is going to place is the same way, where I have a white border around. So I'm not going to add any extra glue because there's no embellishments really on the back. And then when I do my drits, the double here where we put 2 rows, that's going to keep it down. So removing, and I'm going to place it. By the way, I did have to remove my red nail polish. I kept hitting my white cardstock. Okay, so if you have any score tape that is peeking over the edges of your paper, you'll definitely want to make sure that you trim off anything like that. So I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to look at it, make sure that I am pretty even as I can anyway, and I'm going to place it. Make sure that's down really good. Okay, so now I'm going to get my piece for my spine. In your reserves, you will find this piece that we set off to the side. On the back, it's blue. I'm going to open up my album like this. Now I'm going to turn this so I'm looking at it and the flowers are down here and the writing is over here. I'm going to measure over 6 7/8 inch and cut. A smaller piece will go in my reserves. And goes this way. This is the way I want it to place, and that looks good. So it's time for the score tape now. And I'm going to do the same thing I've done before, starting off by going around the outside like a picture frame. Next, I'm going to put one straight down the middle and 2 on either side. And then I'm going to make sure that score tape is down really good on the paper. So I'm going to remove the backing of this, and how this is going to lay is right like this, I think. I like it like this, and it's going to center. So you're going to have a white border, top, bottom, and sides, like so. Got the backing off, and I'm going to place mine, as even as I can anyway. I'm going to make sure that's down really good, especially along the edges there. So right now, this is what our album should look like. Let's get our drits out, and I have one side, and there's the hook part, and then there's this. Now this is where you may want to grab a paper clip, or not a paper clip, but a paper binder or clamps, and we're going to need our glue. Okay, so I am going to add glue to this. And I am going to place it somewhere center here on the side. Now to measure how far you want it to go out is I usually just place it there and put the hook through and then move it back. I definitely don't want it to where I can't get the hook back out. So once you find your spot, whoops, I did have my spot, and then you will use your binder clip or your clamps and clamp that down. This put off to the side. We will not be needing this until we are done with the tutorial. So I'm going to prop my album cover up so you can see what I am going to be doing here. We'll try that. So I've got my 2 3/4 inch medallion lace, and I am going to measure this to fit top to bottom, and I am going to glue just one side down here. And what's going to happen is then I'm going to flip my album over and I'm going to glue this down. So we'll do this together. And I'm just going to start by adding my glue up here, and I guess down here, and we will definitely want to get towards the edge there of our page. So, and I can wipe off any excess glue, and then I can trim this up a little better. So now what I want to do is apply glue back here. Now one thing I don't want to do is lay this flat and glue it, because then our album will not bend. So I'm going to add my glue and make sure I get it towards that edge underneath there. Okay, so this is what I have, and I'm going to bend it over, and then I will make sure that I get up any glue that's showing, and I'm going to let that dry. So I'm going to stick this off to the side for a moment, and I'm going to measure another piece that's going to fit for this side. So I need about right there. And I can start moving here, and I'll start on this side. And when I'm placing this, while it's still wet, I just want to make sure that I have an even amount coming over the side. So that looks good. Pat that down. And now I'm going to add my glue here. And we're going to let that dry. So while our lace is drying, let's grab this out of our paper pack. And we are going to get a couple things off this. So first thing is this piece. So when you're cutting it, what we're going to do is cut just around here. Come up from the bottom and just cut out what we need, like so. And then we can cut around and clean that up in just a moment. The next one is we're going to go after this one. Right here up in the corner. And again, we're just going to cut just what we need to get out of this, like so. We're going to put this in our reserves. Okay, so let's clean this up by cutting around our pieces. And we will not be needing this, actually. You can put this in the trash. And we're going to do the same thing, cutting around this. You can stick this in our reserves just in case we need a corner piece off that. Now in your reserves, grab a piece of white cardstock, scrap, and make sure that you have, if you were to place your larger piece down, that there is enough room to cut around it. Maybe leave about 1/16 of white showing around this. So for me, the easiest way to do this is to apply glue and glue that down. I'm going to apply glue to the back of this, and I'm going to glue that down. Then again, I'm going to cut around it, leaving about 1/16 of an inch of white showing around. And I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, so this is what I have, and this is what I have. Now, the hardest part of this whole tutorial, I think, is that part, trying to get a nice round white border around, and I failed on this, but that's okay. Just a little bit is fine. If you just can't get it right and it looks bad, you can always ink around your edges with a light tan to help. Alrighty, I think my lace is dry. I'm going to lay mine out flat here, and I'm going to grab this piece and I'm going to apply glue to the back. And I'm just going to place that right here. I'm going to apply glue to the back of this one. And I'm going to place it in the center. So if you need to open your book back up to see where your center is, and you don't need to measure it, all you need to do is eyeball that, make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to open this back up. Okay, so next what I've got here is a couple leaves, and I'm going to apply some glue. I'll place one right here, and then the other one, which will be partially covered anyway, right there. If you could see that, just right up at the top. Now I grabbed some of my Tim Holtz flowers, and I daubed on some of the Color Box Sky Blue. I got about 4 here. And I'm going to use my hot glue gun because it dries quicker. So I'm just going to put a few of these right up in here. Right at the top. If I need another one. So I've got 3 right there. I'll put one right here. So I got them just clustered right like that. Now in the petaloo, I grabbed this butterfly, and I'm going to add some glue, and I'm going to stick that right there, just like that. So I've got my stickles, and this is the waterfall, and I am just going to add a little bit to its wings here, and that's going to need to dry. And I think I will add a little to these flowers. Okay, I'm into my crystal stickles, and I think I'll just add a little bit to the leaves there. And the other one is partially hidden, so you don't really need to get a whole bunch. Okay, we're going to leave our album open so that can dry. Let's move on over here. Let's grab our little pearl and rhinestone cluster. And this is the part that it's going to take time for the glue to dry, the metal against the metal. So for me, I like to make sure I get the metal pieces pretty good there. And then I can fix what I need to do. Now one thing is make sure that your cluster isn't going over too far. Now if you have an issue with it not sticking, what you can do, and I'm going to show you, because it does take a moment for this to grab, but if you just can't get yours to stay down, you will cut a small piece of your cardstock. You will glue it down first here, and then you can glue this on top of it. And this is going to probably take me about 15 minutes for this to grab and dry correctly. So I've grabbed a little bit of baby's breath. Again, this is completely optional. You don't have to, but I am going to. And I'm just going to place that right like this, right in there as a cluster. So I'm going to bring this up so you can see. So I'm getting into my Prima flowers here, and I'm going to glue down this white one right here. And then I'm in the 49th and Market, the Bluebell. And I'm going to stick that right there. I have another one of my bluebells, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to lift up some of my baby's breath, and I'm going to glue this right underneath there, just like that. Now you can add more baby's breath if you'd like. Now I got some ribbon and I made a bow, and I am just going to stick that right in there. I have one of my Tim Holtz little white flowers, and I dabbed just a little bit of the Paris Dusk on there. Got another one of my Prima flowers. Stick that right there. I have another Tim Holtz one with the Paris Dusk on there. Stick that right there. I have a small bouquet of the Tim Holtz flowers, and I have the Paris Dusk. And I'm going to apply some glue, and I'm going to tuck that back in there. Right like that. I have another little bouquet, and I put the sky blue on there. And for this one, I'm going to lift that up and tuck those back in there. So far, this is what yours should look like. Okay. So if you have a clamp to clamp down to hold your little pearl cluster over your drits, great. If not, use a binder clip, and that will help keep the pressure down on that. I am using Waterfall right now, and I'm just going to go and get some of these flowers, the Tim Holtz ones with it, just to put a little there, a little dab here and there. And then I have the crystal, and I'm just going to add just very lightly on the white roses here. So this is going to take a moment to dry. We're going to give this probably about 20 minutes for the stickles to dry after we get it on there. And if you need longer time, we'll do that. Let's get some flat back pearls out. We're not quite done adding our flowers and stuff, but let's get into our flat back pearls, and I'm going to glue one down, and it's just a domed one. Put it right here. And then I have 3 of these. And I'm going to use a little hot glue for quick tacking. Put those down right there. Now in the 49th and Market, the bluebells, you will find some leaves, and we're just going to tuck in a few here and there if you can. Put one right there and there. I've got another one, and I am going to cut it a little shorter. I'm going to lift up that and just slide that right underneath that ribbon. Like so. I have another one, and I am going to cut it a little shorter. I'm going to add some glue there, and I'm just going to lift this up a little and tuck that back in there. Whoops, there goes my flat back pearls. Alrighty, let's grab a leaf. I'll use a little hot glue for this. I'm going to stick it right here. I'm going to grab one of my smaller bluebells, stick it right here. I'm going to grab another small bluebell, kind of overlap it. I'm going to add a little Tim Holtz flower, and I do have the sky blue on there. I'll grab another one and just stick that right here, I think. And then I'm going to grab a white one, little Tim Holtz one, and stick it right there. Okay, I'm going to grab the waterfall color and just put a little bit of stickles on I'm going to grab the crystal, and I'll add some to these leaves, just a little bit. I've got another leaf here. I'll tuck it back here, again underneath, and I got one more, and I'll just tuck it right underneath there. And then I'm going to add my crystal stickles just a little bit. Let's add a butterfly. And I'm in the Petaloo, and this one has the polka dots on it. I'm just going to stick that right up there. And where is my waterfall? Grab some crystal. Okay, so we're going to allow this to dry, and we're going to probably give it about 20 minutes for the stickles. And then we're going to move into the inside of our album. Alright, we are going to be moving into page 1. My album is dry, and this is what it looks like so far. Oh, one more thing. Before you move in, since you put the 3 flat back pearls here, I'm going to put 3 back here, 1, 2, and 3, before I move into the inside of my album. If you do not want to put it back there, you don't have to. In your paper pack, you will find this print, the blue one, and on the back it looks like this. The first cut we're going to do is just measure over 6 inches to the middle and cut. Let's double up our pieces. So we got our pieces doubled up. Measure over 7 3/4 of an inch and cut. For those of you that don't know inches very well, 7 3/4 is actually 7-3/4. Put these in your reserves. Take one of these and set them off to the side. This is going to be for our page 2. And how we're going to do this is page 1. And how I like to look at this is, I don't just grab this and say page 1. This is page 1, page 2. It's kind of like reading a book. Page 3, page 4, and so on. 5, 6. That way, if you need to come back at any time, if you need to pause it, you go back to the tutorial and it doesn't pick up where you left off, you can figure out what page you are on. So, this is page 1. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 4 3/4 inch by 8.5 inches. Check your reserve cardstock to see if you have a piece in there. And then we're going to get out one of our deeper edge, thicker punches. So these are the deep edges, what I call. They're a little more than an inch thickness on the border. I'm going to use embroidery. And all I'm going to do is punch along the long side. When you're done punching, this is what you should have. And all we're going to do is make a simple pocket. Now, if you notice, if you lay this down, there's only a little bit hangover on each side. This should be plenty to wrap around the back side. Let's grab our score tape, and we're going to make a real basic pocket here. And we will place a piece of our score tape at the bottom of our page here. And you want to make sure that that's down really good. Now with this, I like to give it a little bit of a bend, and all I'm going to do is bring this down. Now when you do that, make sure that you have even overhang of your white cardstock past your blue page on both sides. So you have something to wrap around the back. Okay, so once you have it there, I like to start in the middle and press out. And you might see this flop up a little bit. And that's what you want, to give yourself a little bit more room. So once you have that down, turn it over, and this is where we're going to bend that flap back behind. And I like to use a little hot glue for quick tacking. And we're going to do the same thing over here. Let's grab that flap and bend it back behind. Okay. So with your scratch piece of cardstock, this is a good time just to lay it down and make sure that that score tape is down. Otherwise, you might find that your score tape does not adhere well enough, and over time it can lift underneath and your stuff going in your pocket might come out the bottom. So that's why it's important to do that. Okay, so this is what you should have. In your reserves, you should have a long piece like this, and on the back it's this. We're going to do a real easy measuring without using the ruler, and all we're going to do is bring this down right underneath our trim all the way to the side. We're going to use our pencil and we're going to measure to fit. So I'm just going to make a pencil mark right at the edge, and now I'm going to cut. I'm going to put this back in my reserve. Now mine is a little bit too long for the page, so I'm just going to bring that right on up like this, right underneath that trim where it's supposed to be. And then I can actually see how much overhang is down there. I'm going to pull it over just a little bit more so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the bottom of my cardstock. Make a pencil mark, and now I'm going to trim that excess off. So you might have some trimmings like this. I want you to keep it till the end of the project. We'll just stick this in our reserves. Before we do any gluing, we always double check. So to make sure it's going to fit and we didn't mismeasure. So mine is a good fit. I'm going to apply glue to the back of this and mount this on top of my pocket there. I'm going to use some of the flapper style lace here, and I'm just going to measure across my page to fit. And you're not going to want any hanging over the side, so you'll want to, once you get it down, maybe trim it up a little bit. And I'm going to glue that right on down like this. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 7.5 inches by 6 inches. And then we're going to need our scoring board. We're going to lay this down on our scoreboard, and we are 7.5 inches across. At 6 7/8 of an inch, we're going to score, and at 7 inches, we'll score. And then we're going to fold on our score lines, and we'll use our tool to smooth that out. So my flap is over here, and it's off to the left and tucked back behind. I'm in my 1/2 inch EK Tools. This is Abstract Flower. And along the edge that does not have the scoring, I am going to punch. And what I want to do is place this so that it's in between the two scalloped flowers there, so that I'm not open-ended. It's kind of like what we did with our internal, our base pages when we put it in there. So I'll start there, and then I'll continue to punch along the rest. So this is what you should have. We're going to attach this. Now you have an inside score line and an outside score line. On the outside, let's pinch it like this. Then we're going to slide this back behind, lining it up so it's even top to bottom. So this is what yours should look like. Once you have it even, you're going to pinch. Oop, I got glue on me. You're going to pinch and hold it with this hand. You're also going to pinch and hold it here. So when you flip it over, it should not move. If it moves, then you'll want to start all over again. Now if you're using a hot glue gun, you're going to be very careful if you're using it to tack, because if you get too much, it will squirt out into the underseam, and then you'll be able to see it. So I'm just going to put a little bit here, and I'm going to fold that over. Once I have that, I'm going to flip it back over, and I'm going to push back on that inner score. So you should have something looking like this. Alright, let's grab the cover of one of our covers to our paper packs. This is where we're going to put this to good use. I'm going to turn mine sideways like this. I'm going to measure over 5 3/4 of an inch and cut. Alrighty, so we cut this, put this in your reserves, and we're going to look at it like this now. Measure over 6 1/8 of an inch and cut. Okay, we want this piece, and we'll put this in our reserves. Do not worry about that down there. Let's just make sure that we fit, leaving a white border of cardstock all the way around our base page here. And mine looks good. Check your reserved cardstock. What we want is a 2.5 inch by 4 inch piece. And you can use your scrap cardstock, of course, to cut down to that size. Once you have yours cut, we're 4 inches by 2.5 inches, what you're going to do is cut from corner to corner. So if it's easier for you to take your ruler from this corner down to this one and draw a line for you to put it on your paper cutter, then do that. So this is actually going to be a corner piece. So what you're going to want to do is, I'm in my scallop, that is the smaller, it's about a 1/4 inch there, or you can use your 1/2 inch. We're just going to punch along the longest side here. So this is what you should have. In your reserves, you're going to get this out. It's white on the back. It's a piece of our cover. And you'll see where the tail end over here of where it used to be up here. And all we're going to do is we're going to turn this so that this print, which matches up here, is showing. And we're just going to bring that right underneath the scallop so you can still see some of the white scallop. And the best way that I like to do is just kind of make a pencil mark here and here. Okay. And sometimes it's just easier just to lay it down like so on top so you can get an accurate cut. So there was my pencil mark. And then you can draw it around. So we're going to cut that angle so it will fit on top of this. And we probably want to use our scissors so we don't cut it into that because we will be needing that later. We'll just do that. And then we can also trim this up more if needed. There. And I'll put this back in my reserves. And I will place this right here, and that looks good. If you have any pencil marks, erase them. I'm going to apply glue and glue that down. Okay, so we have this that goes on top, we have this together. Now we are going to put glue, a fine line, right underneath this side and along the bottom. So I'm just going to, a real thin line. And we won't be putting glue there because this is a pocket. And I'm going to bring this to the bottom corner and over. And make sure that that glue sticks. Okay. So once you have that, you can turn this over, apply glue, and we're going to mount this. And we're going to center this so we have a white border going around our page there. So let's do that. Alright, let's flip that over. In your paper pack, you will find this page. It's the tag page. On the back is this, and we do want this, but we want to make sure that we all have the same leftover cuts. So the first thing we're going to do is turn our sheet so we're looking at it like this. And we are going to cut right in between these tags and right these. So I'm going to show you really quick. So this is what we have so far. Put this in your reserves. Now measure over 6 inches and cut. Set this off to the side. We're going to need something off there soon. This is the one that we want to use. So if you were to place this down, you will notice that you will have a white border on the left and the right side, steering clear of that inner score mark there where our fold goes. So I am just going to pull this down to where I have a white border here, and from the top where I can see it, I'm just going to come down maybe 1/8 of an inch and make a mark. So now I am going to trim that, and I'll show you what mine looks like. Alright, we're going to stick this in our reserves. We're going to flip that over. Okay, this should be a nice fit. Now, if you are a beginner, one thing you always have to look for is that inner score line. You want to steer clear, at least 1/8 of an inch away from it if this is your first album. That's pretty much where I'm at on this. So I am now going to apply glue to this side, and I'm going to mount this, giving myself a white border around. Okay, I've got my glued down. The next thing I want to do is, since I want us all to have the same cuts and leftovers, we're going to be making the same cuts throughout this if you're using this paper. So right now, in between these tags and this, we're going to put this on our paper cutter and cut right in between. Stick this in your reserves. And now we are going to cut right down in between these two. We'll put this in our reserves. And now we're going to cut around our tag. Okay, I have my color box sky blue, and I'm actually going to ink around the edges of my tag before I mount this onto white cardstock. The reason why I like to mount this onto white cardstock is because it gives it a little more strength, and it will last you a long time. You don't have to worry about tears, is what I'm trying to say. So I've inked around my edges, and now is a good time for me to look in my reserves for possibly a scratch piece of cardstock that might fit. And I don't have anything, it doesn't look like, oh wait, I have this. If you do not, you can cut a piece of cardstock. What you're wanting to do is have a piece big enough to where if you were to lay this down, and you can cut around it and have a little bit of a white border. So I'm going to glue this down to the cardstock first before I start cutting around it. And when I say a little bit of a white border, a 1/16 of an inch, which is a little less than an eighth, is all you need. Just enough to see a little white on those edges. I like to do that because it really does make things kind of pop out. So now I'm just going to cut around my tag. Okay, so I have mine, and I'm not perfect, and you don't have to be. So what I want to do now is just add a little bit of glue just to the bottom of my tag. And I'm going to place it, and when I place it, I'm going to do slightly at an angle without going over the sides there. And now this would be a good time to glue down a leaf and a flower, and I'm using one of the small ones. And now this serves as a small pocket where you can slide photo back behind to hold it there, as you can see. If you would like to add another flower, you can. You just don't want it too bulky is all. Okay, I'm going to close this, and that looks good. Now I'm going to be using up my leaves in my 49th Market before I start punching my other leaves. So I think I'm going to lay one right here. I'll lay one of my smaller ones right there. I'm going to get into my cream colored butterflies, the one with the polka dots on it. I want to add some stickles. And I have the mercury glass, and I'm going to just add a little to the leaves of this, and I think I'll try it up in here. So this definitely will need to dry before we do anything in here. And I also want to add it here, so I definitely don't want to close my page until this is dry, so we'll have to set this up so it does not. So what I like to do is I just prop it up until it's dry. I have the lid on this, and I'll just prop it up like this, and I will give this a few moments to dry. While my stickles are drying, I do have, like I said, a ink pad underneath there so that it doesn't get the underneath. I'm going to cut a piece of my bling to fit across this little triangular pocket, and I'm just going to add some glue. I'm just going to dress this up a little bit more, and I'm going to stick this right there like that. So I have my stickles and everything is dry. We're going to flip this over, and we're going to apply score tape to the back around the edges like a picture frame to start. Okay, I got the score tape around there. I'm going to go one, and I'll put two on either side. And you'll want to make sure that your score tape is down really good. Now we're not going to mount page 1 into our book just yet. We actually mount page 1 after we mount page 2. And when we get to that point, I will explain why. So for now, we're just going to set these off to the side, and we're going to move on to page 2.